Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know question is, do you know what a novena is and how it originated? It's important to realize first that a novena is a prayer experience for 9 successive time frames. Some of you might have experienced this or are aware of this with regards to the 9 first Fridays, or the preparation for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe is introduced with a novena of prayer experiences for 9 successive days in preparation for the actual feast. It would be important to realize, where did this time of ardent prayer in preparation for a feast or for the gifts received at from a particular feast, where did that originate? Well, in the Acts of the Apostles, which we use for the first reading during the Easter season, Luke, the author of the Acts of the Apostles, as well as the Gospel of Luke, sets us a time frame of 40 days from the time of the resurrection to the time that Jesus ascended into heaven. And then Jesus instructs his disciples to gather in prayer and to await the gift of the Spirit that he would send upon them on the feast that we now declare as Pentecost. And that was a 10-day time frame. That was from the Feast of the Ascension, 40 days after, to the Feast of the Pentecost, 50 days after Easter. And so from that time frame, we have the apostles in fervent prayer with a number of women, the mother of Jesus, as well as a number of other apostles who the Acts of the Apostles names as many as 120 people gathering to await the promise of the Spirit that Jesus had promised them before he ascended to his Father. And so that ardent period of time prayer from the Ascension to the evening before Pentecost became the model for a novena, a 9-day period of prayer in preparation for the gifts, in this particular case, the gifts that were to be received, the gift of the Spirit at Pentecost. And so the actual time frame now is encouraged in a quote from the ceremonial of bishops. It states that the weekdays from Ascension to the Saturday before Pentecost inclusive are days of preparation for the coming of the Holy Spirit, the Paraclete. So we are encouraged to use those days from the Ascension to the Saturday before Pentecost as a period of ardent prayer in anticipation for the gifts of the Spirit that is given to us at Pentecost. Some of the ways in which any community can celebrate or prepare for this ardent prayer time in preparation for Pentecost is by focusing on the gifts of the Spirit as recounted in the book of Isaiah, or the fruits of the Spirit from the letters of St. Paul. These could be real focal points of prayer for those 9 days. A parish or a community could have a mission focused on the gifts of the Spirit and the presence of the Spirit in our midst. Also, what could happen is evening of reflections for different ministries in a particular parish community as they prepare for the gift of the Spirit that we celebrate at Pentecost. These are various ways in which we can take the recommendations from the ceremonial of the bishops to prepare for Pentecost through an experience of a novena. In 1988 also, it's important to realize that in 1988, in the revision of the lectionary, they established a vigil for Pentecost that was modeled on the Easter vigil. And they recommended a sequence of 9 readings modeled on the Easter Vigil, 7 from the Old Testament, 1 from the letters of Paul, and the other in the Gospel from the Gospel of John, in which the presence of the Spirit was celebrated from the very beginning of creation up to our day and time. And so it was recommended that, certainly in our many of the recommendations for liturgy, it was recommended that we take advantage of celebrating the Pentecost Vigil the way the Easter Vigil is celebrated. I'd like to quote from a quote from the Preparing and Celebrating the Paschal Feast, to document from the Office of Divine Worship, which said that encouragement should be given to the prolonged celebration of Mass in the form of a vigil, whose character is not baptismal as in the Easter feast, but is one of urgent prayer after the example of the apostles and disciples, who persevered together in prayer with Mary, the mother of Jesus, as they awaited the Holy Spirit. And so this period between the Feast of the Ascension and the coming of the Spirit of Pentecost is really a rich time for us as a church community to focus on the presence of the Spirit in our lives and celebrate the gifts that the Spirit brings in order to carry on the mission and ministry of Jesus. So I hope this has helped to at least explain a bit of what what a novena is and where the experience came from, and hope that as we prepare for Pentecost every year, we would focus on the presence of the Spirit and the gifts that the Spirit gives to us as we prepare in those 9 days for the gift of Pentecost. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again for more Do You Know series question.